Hello, everybody. I am Yolanda.
And I'm Julie.
Yeah, we are here today to talk about something really, really important. I think it's kind of become a buzzword in our society. And also, I think it's something that we hear so much, but I don't know that we really have a grasp about what true self-care is. Is that fair to say?
I think it's definitely fair to say that we probably don't have a good working definition of it, and I do think that it has now become commodified and people are selling what self-care is,
right,
and really missing the point of what self-care is.
Yeah. So let's start breaking it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I found this quote, and I wanted to start with this, and it's, "I was always ashamed to take, so I gave. It was not a virtue, it was a disguise." And I think that's a really powerful self-quote because I think that's how a lot of us live, being ashamed to ask for what we need and to even offer that to ourselves. And I think at the very beginning of self-care, it's even acknowledging that we have needs that aren't being met.
Can we just pause there? Because
the quote,
I mean, just like everything that you just said, there's so much truth to that I don't think that we allow ourselves to be present with and to really soak in, right? I never even allowed myself to have any needs. Not even any wants, but any needs, right?
Yeah.
We especially as women in society, we become so conditioned, but I think this happens across the board.
For sure.
Let me serve and let me, meet other people's needs. And I think for some of us, I'll just speak for myself, that comes from a place of oh, it feels good to have other people need us and to make other people feel good, but it comes at a cost. And I think part of what we're talking about is
the cost,
recognizing the cost.
And that quote also talks about the shame of having needs, which I really think is a trauma response.
Say more about that.
I think that when we grow up in houses where our needs aren't noticed, I mean, I think you can have trauma or distressing life events because of what happens. And I think you can because of what doesn't happen. And I think that quote speaks to a child maybe who isn't paid attention to, who isn't nurtured, and who isn't taken care of. And maybe not in a legal system of neglect, but emotionally not cared for. And then we become ashamed of having needs, of needing to be seen, of needing to be cared for. And then I think the mask becomes, what can I do for you to have value?
Because that's what we learn growing up in those environments. I think, generally speaking, we kind of have an understanding of what trauma is, broadly. I think most people would say, yes, combat, war, natural disasters, those are trauma. But some of the things that you just described, we don't consider to be trauma.
So I have studied a lot of Gabor Mate's work, and his definition of trauma is not what happens outside, but it's what happens inside after an event. It's when your nervous system is overwhelmed by whatever happens outside, but it's more that an event causes a separation of yourself from yourself. So it's kind of, if you were a child, or now if you're a grown-up person and you're working in an environment where your needs don't matter,
whether you were told that explicitly or it was just implicitly implied.
So I think a lot of us get messages that our needs don't matter, that we don't matter, and I think that is a trauma.
We know that that's a trauma.
It is.
Yeah. So this is really what we're talking about when we're talking about self-care. It's not just the bubble baths and the massages and then getting the nails done, and those are great things, those are important, but we're really kind of saying, wow, it's this recognizing our own needs,
even knowing we have them, pausing long enough to know, this isn't working for me. What is it that I need in this moment? And just even giving ourselves that pause and allowing the answer to come up, whether we act on it or not, but just that pause.
Allowing ourselves to matter.
Yeah.
I love that. This is going to be so good. All right. Anything else for?
Nope.
Yeah. Stay tuned, y'all. This is going to be good.